All right, what's going on, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to another episode of Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo Sports Talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Thank you so much for watching the show, for listening, however you are consuming Talking Buffalo. Appreciate you guys very much. If you missed yesterday's show, we were live at Imperial Pizza. I had Don Tibbetts from Channel 7 on with me. It was a lot of fun, really good conversation. We talked some Bills takeaways, but we also spent some time talking about sports media stuff, wings, just getting to know Dom a little bit. He's got a new podcast out with Brother Bill called Leading the Charge. We talked about that. So if you missed it, make sure you go back and check that out. Big shout out to our sponsors today, of course. I mentioned Imperial Pizza, 1035 Aber Road, and also Sunny Reds, 1841 Aber Road, just down the way from Highmark Stadium. Maybe there for a live show tomorrow night. Let you guys know that soon as possible. As for today, this is our typical midweek episode, which means, as usual, I'm joined by my good friend over at SB Nation, my guy, Matt Warren. Man, what's up, buddy? How you doing?
Good. Everything's going well over here. So we got the short week, and we'll have a full Sunday of, well, I can't call it commercial-free football anymore, but red zone football, let's say.
Almost commercial-free. Let me ask a quick question. So, and also let me set the stage. Matt and I did this last week, and I enjoyed it. I think we're going to do something that we're going to do going forward every week. A couple days now have passed since the Bills played. We're going to kind of go through positionally. Now you got numbers. You've had a chance to rewatch some or maybe all of the game. We're going to go positionally. We're going to talk about how they did positionally, and then ultimately Matt is going to assign a grade. We'll also take a quick look at the Miami Dolphins, who, of course, the Bills will be playing by the time you listen to this tomorrow night, and maybe a couple things from around the NFL as well. Let me ask you this. So as somebody now who works in sports like you do on a full-time basis, how much does it throw you off when, you know, you're used to playing on Sunday or Monday night, but then you get those one or two Thursday games that turn around? It just, I don't know, the clock feels different to me right now. How about you?
Yeah, it's not quite the same for me since we cover all 32 teams at SB Nation, and I'm
Sure.
like, you know, I was watching, you know, the Falcons and Vikings. I'm watching like all those, you know, a lot of those primetime games anyway, so it doesn't throw me off as much. But like, I still talk to everybody about it, and they're like, yeah, I miss Sundays at 1 p.m., which obviously we had last weekend against the Jets. It was just nice to not have to like worry about staying up late. Well, that's the other thing, like the staying
Sure.
up late piece after that Ravens game, when the Bills were getting blown out, I'm like, good, I'll be in bed by midnight, like we'll be fine. And then, you know, they come back, I end up writing like 4 articles, and I'm up until 2 a.m. So it's just like the sleep part, because like I still have kids that have to get up and go to school, you know, so it's like I can't sleep in if I stay up late, you know, right after a Sunday night football thing. So I think the night part of Bills games is the only thing that really throws me off, not necessarily which day it is.
Okay. Very fair. Let's go through again, and I want to get to a lot today, and I have this habit of rambling on with Matt before, and then I'm like, holy shit, it's been an hour already, and I still, you know, I didn't even get to this, that, or the other thing, and it always ends up being my fault. I do need to let everybody know, as always, not always, but usually Matt and I, we are today recording Tuesday morning. The Bills have yet to practice on Tuesday, so we don't know any updated injury report. I'd be surprised if anything changed, other than possibly maybe somebody reports and we get a little more light on Matt Milano's injury status, but we'll get to that in a few minutes, what it is right now. But anyway, I'm just letting people know that in case some breaking news happens and we don't discuss it on the show. I feel like that's our weekly disclaimer, because when your schedule and mine aligns that we could do this, this is when we record in the morning. Anyway, I want to get to the positions like we did last week. Like I said, I like this a lot. Get your insight. We'll go position by position. We'll talk about how they performed, and then you will assign them a grade. Let's start with the quarterback. All right, week 1, this was pretty damn easy, all right, against the Baltimore Ravens. When you throw for 261 yards and 3 total touchdowns in a quarter, you're going to get the highest grade possible. The Bills win by 20 points in New Jersey against the Jets. Josh Allen, very pedestrian-like numbers when you look at the box score. 14 of 25 for 148 yards, 6 rushes for 59 yards. He did have that 40-yarder early in the game, which was pretty sweet, but no touchdowns for Josh. No passing touchdowns, no rushing touchdowns. I didn't look it up, but I know that's very rare when he does that. So again, statistically, not great. You could also point to, if you're on the positive side, he didn't have any turnover-worthy throws either. Like, there's a couple times, like that Baltimore game, he played with danger. Things could have went the other way rather easily. Baltimore dropped a couple would-be interceptions. I don't recall the Jets even having like an interceptable ball that they should have had. So Josh was careful with the football. Little erratic too, though, at times. A couple of his throws, not the best. Since we're talking about the position, I do have to mention Josh gets hit, nose bleeding all over the place, which was pretty wild to watch and a little bit scary, obviously. Mitch Trubisky comes in. It's third down. I'm like, all right, well, Josh is hurt. Mitch is just going to hand the ball off, and if they don't break a run, they're going to punt. Well, Mitch comes into the game and throws a dart to, I think it was Josh Palmer, for 32 yards. On Sauce Gardner, and a perfect throw from Mitch Trubisky. So you add that into the mix if you want. But anyway, quarterback, I don't know. What's up? What do you think, man?
I'm definitely adding that Trubisky pass into the mix, man. Like the cojones, first of all, them calling it kind of makes sense. Like, the defense isn't really going to be prepared for Mitch Trubisky to come in, but like, for him to throw that pass the way he threw it without any warm-ups. I know Josh talked about it at the end of the game too. It's just like he didn't get a chance to like throw on the sideline because Josh was down on the field or anything like that. Like, he came in ice cold and nailed that ball. So yeah, he definitely he ups the grade here today. I went with like an A- overall. Allen had those 2 intentional grounding calls that I thought were, pretty lazy on his part. I mean, it's not often that I, even throw out a criticism for Josh Allen, but like, I mean, all he had to do was get it to the line of scrimmage. Like, it's not like I was asking him to like find a receiver to throw to or anything like that. He just flipped. It was just like the little flip, like, just throw past the line of scrimmage, man. You won't get called for intentional grounding. It didn't really hurt them in the grand scheme of things.
Sure.
I think a lot of his incompletions were drops, which we'll get to in a second when we talk about some other position groups. But yeah, I don't know if you can go a whole lot higher than A- when the stats are what the stats are.
All right, so you have A-, and I'm glad you brought up the intentional groundings too, because if you really want to nitpick Josh's performance, those were 2 things that were on him. It wasn't like he was falling to the ground and tried to flip it. Both times, he didn't get hit either time. He was on the run. He had to get rid of the ball and throw it away. But yeah, his the mental clock or mental capacity to know to get the ball past the line of scrimmage, that was surprisingly bad for him in that game. There were some drops too that, if they make the plays, the stats look a little bit better. I still think you're a little generous though with the A-.
Okay.
You said A-. I'm gonna go all the way down to a B.
Okay.
Again, very game management, like minus the 40-yard run, which was just sicko Josh Allen. And you know what? Let's make it a B+ because he did get his nose busted and he missed a couple plays. Like, yeah. I would have been out for 6 months if that shit would have happened to me, man. I would have been like, God damn, this shit hurts. Anyway, so we'll give him some credit. So I'm actually going to bump it up to a B+, make it closer. But yeah, there were also a couple throws though that I didn't love. But in this kind of game, and we're going to get to this when I talk about the coaching before we get to a grade for that too. I think it was a really simple game plan. Do not give the Jets anything for free. Make them go up and down the field and earn it. And Josh, like I said, to his credit for that, nothing turnover worthy at all.
Yeah, he did have that one overthrow on the sideline, but it was like up and away. Like, it was nowhere near any of the Jets defenders and it sailed on him. Like, we've seen this now in the last few games where he just sails one of his early passes. And
yeah.
I think both Chris Collinsworth and Tony Romo were talking about how he gets so amped up at the beginning of the game. And so that's an interesting little nugget to file away for later.
Sure. All right, let's get to running backs next here. So a big game from James Cook, 21 carries, $132, 44-yard ESPN highlight reel style touchdown. That was a really sick play there. Had over 100 yards after contact. Had like 106 rushing yards after contact. He's up. It's only 2 weeks in, but He's near the lead right now in yards after contact. The Bills as a team ran for, I believe, 224 yards. So a lot of success running the ball on the ground. Obviously, James Cook being almost exclusively, and Josh Allen, the reason why. Ray Davis, 9 carries, 24 yards. Back-to-back weeks where he just really hasn't had, I don't know, well, he did have 9 carries. Just, he's not getting it going right now. All right, let's put it that way. Also, another quiet day for Ty Johnson. He had just 2 carries for 6 yards. He did not catch a pass in this game. In fact, the Bills running backs collectively only caught 1 pass, and it was the dump off to James Cook that went for 3 yards. So, again, lots of factors. James Cook was borderline spectacular. They ran for over 200 yards. What do you think here?
So at the beginning of the game, they're doing those like sideways handoffs, and James Cook keeps doing the jump cuts. Everything's like, side to side, left to right. And I'm standing there thinking, like, man, this is annoying watching this play out. Like, I just don't like east-west running at the line of scrimmage, right? And then as the game goes on, like James Cook is setting up blocks like nobody's business with those jump cuts. And obviously he had a superb cut on that long run for the touchdown. Like, I realized I was very wrong on that initial drive, on the first initial drives, when I was just kind of like, why are we doing the jump cuts? Why are we doing the side to sides? So it was setting up the Jets defense for the rest of the game. He was just masterful. It was great. Ray Davis still baffling to me. Not sure what's kind of going on with that. Johnson, again, not really effective in the actual run game. James Cook brings that grade up to an A. Like, it's hard to ding them when they gained whatever it was, 170 something yards on the ground against what I think is a pretty good Jets defensive front. So I give them an A.
I'm with you there. I'm also going to give him an A. It's not, we like to call it a 3-headed monster. It's not. It's James Cook and then 2 other guys. All right. And your feature running back had a $132, a 44-yard touchdown run. And as a team collectively, they ran for well over 200 yards. To your point, against a pretty good, at least, Jets defense. The Jets struggled last week against Pittsburgh, but not a stop in the run. Pittsburgh couldn't run the ball. It was Aaron Rodgers doing the damage. I think he'd do for 4 touchdowns and like 244 yards in week 1. So, yeah, man, the running back room is great. And, I look back now, and I think there were a lot of people. You see what Ray Davis is doing. And I'm like, God, the last couple of weeks, I've made it sound like I'm shitting all over Ray Davis. That is not my intention. He is a perfectly fine rosterable, and you could do a hell of a lot worse. He's running back 3, okay? And if you stacked Ray Davis up against 31 other RB3s in this league, be willing to bet he's pretty high up there in terms of talented RB3s. But there are a lot of people, Matt, and you and I talked about it, and we've seen a lot of it where, if James could trade James Cook, he's not worth that money. We're fine. Ray Davis could do the job. Ty Johnson is fine. This offense is just so much more dynamic with James Cook. And we've seen it now, back-to-back weeks. I mean, the guy's he's played 2 games and he's had 2 plays now of at least 44 yards already this season. It's just, I think the Bills' offense is on another level when James Cook is out there.
Yeah, and we're going to need Ray Davis at some point. We're going to need Ty Johnson at some point.
Sure.
So it's not like, I'm burying him for the rest of the season. Ray Davis has not had a good opening 2 weeks, and I don't think you can really argue that. I don't think you can argue Ty Johnson's had a really good 2 weeks, but they will be called upon eventually. The Bills like going with the hot hand. They just haven't been the hot hand, and James Cook's been super hot.
Yeah, and look, also I'll point it out, it doesn't matter to this point. They haven't, like you said, they haven't needed him. They will at some point. All right, wide receivers here. Statistically, nothing phenomenal. Josh Palmer, 2 catches for 47 yards. Keon Coleman, 3 catches for 26 yards. He did have an offensive pass interference penalty. That was his fault, too. What else we got here? Elijah Moore, 1 catch, 31 yards.
And a touchdown run.
And a touchdown on the ground. Nice jet sweep. And Khalil Shakir. Very quiet day for Khalil Shakir. 1 catch for just 12 yards. So, I don't know. Wide receivers, man. What are we thinking here?
Well, you go into this game, it's really depends on what your expectations were. Like you go into the game, you saw Aaron Rodgers like throw all over the Jets last week. I expected Keon to have a big day because the Jets play a lot of man to man. And like they did draw some, holding calls and pass interference calls and all this other thing, the wide receivers, I mean. And so that was good. And it's not really reflected in the stat sheet per se. And so I thought they had a really solid game overall, and they did what they were asked to do. I mean, especially, Palmer on that 3rd and 7 pass from Mitch Trubisky. Like he beat a really, really good cornerback in the
Yeah.
NFL and made a play for his guy. And that's what you and I have talked about that a lot, is like, you need receivers to make a play for your guy. And he did in that one big moment when the game was still obviously very early on. It wasn't like the game was decided by that point. So I think while the game was still competitive, they did fine. And then they called off the dogs. All of them were under 60%, I think, in terms of snap counts, just because they pulled them out at the end of the game. So
Yeah.
I gave him an A. Just it was a solid outing. I mean, it was an everybody eats game. No one really stood out like we've seen like in the past. Like Keon Coleman stood out in week 1. So I mean, just it was fine. A.
Okay. I'm right there close with you. Maybe a tiny bit lower, but to your point, like what did Keon Coleman had that pass interference penalty that he didn't need to have. He couldn't have made that play without it. Outside of that, I really don't think of mistakes, not costly ones,
Yeah.
certainly, that they made. They did what they had to do, to your point. I'll say like Khalil Shakir only having one catch for 12 yards. Statistically, that stinks, but that one catch, they were kind of pinned back a little bit, and Shakir got the ball, and he also not only made the catch, but which was not an easy catch, and he fell forward and got through a tackle, and he got a first down. I remember that play very well. Like you said, Palmer, I mean, he did beat Sauce Gardner on that 32-yard perfect pass. So I still can't get over that throw from Mitch Trubisky. By the way, I really like Josh Palmer. I'm telling you, dude. Now, he's got 108 yards in 2 games. That's nothing spectacular, but this guy's going to have some big ass games. I'm
It's your
telling you, I can feel it in
expectation,
my
right?
bones. Hmm?
What was your expectation of him going into the season? Because 100 yards after 2 games, he's going to have like, what, 700, 800 yards. Like, I mean, I think that's probably what we were expecting in this offense with so many different weapons
Yeah.
and so many people asking for the ball. And it like, we talked about this with Kincaid last year. Like, if you expected him to have 1,000-yard season last year or this year, you're going to be wrong and you're going to be disappointed. But if you see how they use those guys, you see the number of targets they get. Like, he's exactly on the pace that I thought he was going to be, Josh Palmer.
I agree with you. And look, he's making big plays too. That Baltimore game, that last final drive, he cooked Jair Alexander, and Josh just made a perfect throw. That was a huge play in that football game. When it comes to Keon Coleman, this is why with the Bills' motto and their philosophy and the way they play football, like predicting that he's going to get 1,000 yards is just so iffy. So he gets over 100 in week 1. You're like, yo, he's gonna have maybe a T. Higgins type season. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but you know what I'm saying. It's like he's gonna have a big year. And then you go to a game like this and he has 3 catches for 26 yards. Now, again, he made a mistake on one play, but even if you give him that, that's what, 4 catches for around maybe 40, 45 yards. I don't think he's going to have that great season statistically, not because I don't think Keon Coleman is much improved, but more because it's just the way this offense is. They're going to blow a lot of shitty teams out.
Yep.
They're going to run the football. They love running the football. So he's not just going to have those games. One last thing about wide receiver. Let's talk about somebody who didn't play, and that's Curtis Samuel. I have come resigned. So week 1, I'm like, yeah, he's not out there because he missed a lot of summer. He didn't get a lot of reps. They're going to go with Elijah Moore, who's, been out there a lot more. Week 2, he doesn't play. I'm like, well, that's not good for Curtis Samuel. And then Elijah Moore goes out and has a good game. He's not coming out of the lineup. I talked about this with Don Tibbetts from Channel 7 on the show yesterday. I think I've become resigned to the fact, and this isn't necessarily an awful thing, Matt, but Curtis Samuel's insurance. There's 4 receivers on this team. 4 receivers are not going to play 17 games. Somebody's going to get dinged. Somebody's going to miss some time. And having a guy like Curtis Samuel as insurance almost feels like a luxury. So while the Bills Mafia is completely shitting all over Brandon Beane and shitting all over Curtis Samuel, I am now taking the stance that, hey, this is a good player to have. Almost kind of like it feels like he's on the practice squad because he's only going to play if someone else gets hurt. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we can keep talking about wide receiver here too. Like Curtis Samuel, like we'll see what happens in week 4 by the time they get that like mini bye coming off the Thursday
Sure.
night football game. But like Elijah Moore started that game against the Jets. Like they made a concerted effort to get him
Yes.
involved in that game. And whether it was because he's playing his old team and they wanted the revenge factor or whatever it was, they made an effort to get Elijah Moore involved in that game. We'll see what happens, like I said, with Curtis Samuel as the season goes on. But think back to like the discourse that we had over the offseason when people were complaining that the Bills needed to add another wide receiver. Like, are we really like having that conversation this offseason? I know they added Elijah Moore later, but like they have a solid wide receiver group, and I don't know why necessarily we needed to have that conversation about them adding, another top tier wide receiver.
Agreed. And look, you just said a perfect word, by the way. I think that's how I would describe this receiving group is solid. They're not elite. They're not
Right.
quote unquote great, but they are solid. I don't think Curtis Samuel's getting on the field though until there's an injury because I think the top 4 guys now are pretty much cemented, and Tyrell Shavers is playing special teams, and he's going to stay on the field for that reason alone. But like I said, I'm not mad about that anymore. I actually feel good about that. If Elijah Moore goes down, if Josh Palmer, I hope not, but if he goes down, I'm going to feel pretty good that Curtis Samuel is the guy coming up as opposed to a KJ Hamler or, one of those million other practice Stefan Gosnell or somebody like that coming up. No disrespect to him. You know what I mean? So I feel good about that. Tight ends. We gave them an A+ in week 1. I'm pretty sure you're not going to do that here in week 2. Dalton Kincaid, 4 catches for 37 yards. 2 straight games now with 4 catches. Dawson Knox, 2 catches for 19 yards. Jackson Hawes, 1 catch for 5 yards. It's not like awful statistically, but there's some things that I'm sure you didn't like from at least one guy in that group for sure. What do you think?
Yeah, Dawson Knox turned into Stonehands a little bit in this game, and so one of the reasons we gave them an A+ last game was because they caught every target, and this game that did not happen. And so I think Kincaid had a drop. Knox had at least 2, if I remember correctly.
He did have 2 right in his hands.
Yeah, he gets paid way too much for that, and like he knows that. Like I'm not saying anything nobody else like can't say, but I do find it interesting that Jackson Hawes continues to eat Alec Anderson's snaps. That's something we talked about last week too.
Yeah.
Anderson finished with 10 snaps, which was only 2 ahead of Ryan Vandermark and Cedric Van Pringranger at offensive lineman. So it's clear that they value Hawes as the 6th offensive lineman now over Alec Anderson. So that's going to be a trend I think we're going to continue seeing. I gave him a C+ just because between the 3 of them, they had the 3 drops and not a great day for the tight end position.
I would have agreed with or disagreed with you, I should say, and I would have went much lower. I would have went C- because of the drops. Dawson Knox is frustrated. More on him in a second. But you know why I would grade it a C+ is when I watched back the game, one of the things I saw were the tight ends did a great job of blocking. This is already becoming a thing with Jackson Hawes, and we already know that. Yeah, Alec Anderson only played 2 jumbo snaps, by the way, in that game. And I like that because the offense is more, in fact, they threw out of that. I think Jackson Hawes caught that 1 pass. It's far less predictable when Jackson Hawes is out there, at least in terms of the defense. They might run the ball as much as they did last year, but defense has got to defend a little bit differently because now you got to account for Jackson Hawes as a pass catcher where you never really had to do that before with Alec Anderson. So I wanted to point that out. But like on that Elijah Moore jet sweep, when you watch the tape, Dalton Kincaid had a great block on that play. And Dalton Kincaid's had a couple, I feel like he's at least subtly improved this year blocking. So I'll give them some credit for that. Dawson Knox is always a pretty good blocker. But I'll say this. If we were doing a show right now, if you and I were power ranking, not counting injuries, our top concerns with the Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen throwing a critical pass at a critical time to Dawson Knox that he drops would be sneakily climbing up my list. Josh trusts him still. He likes going to him. Who gives a shit that he dropped 2 passes against the New York Football Jets right now? Who cares? But you might be playing Denver or the Chargers or Baltimore or whoever in the playoffs, and it's, 3rd and 4, critical fourth quarter play, and he rolls out and Dawson Knox drops the ball. That is something that is pretty high of my personal power rankings right now when it comes to concerns with this team.
And I think I don't know if we've talked about this before, but it's been kind of like the book on Dawson Knox is that sometimes he drops those easy ones and then for whatever reason makes like the highlight reel catches or the catches in the biggest moments. So, I mean, I'm hopeful that that's not going to be the case when, the rubber really meets the road, that he's going to make the hard catches or the important catches. But yeah, he does. Well, it's a mental thing. I think it's not that he's being lazy or anything like that. It's just like he tends to like really focus in those bigger moments. And then, in a 1 o'clock game against the Jets in week 2, maybe he's not quite as like dialed in.
Yeah. I was looking while you were talking too. This is probably look, and Dawson Knox is a very popular player, and he's a good player too. Okay, he does make some difficult plays. I'm not saying the dude stinks. I'm not saying cut him. I'm just saying I'm concerned about his drops. And at this stage of his career, is that going to change? He's 29 years old. You know what I mean? It's not changing. He is who he is. He's going to make you mad. He's going to make you very happy. It depends what kind of Dawson Knox you're getting on that play. But this is probably his last season in Buffalo. I was just looking up his cap numbers. With Jackson Hawes on the come up, Dawson Knox next year will be 30 years old. They'd have to eat about $7.4 million in dead cap, but they would save just under $10 million in cap space cutting him. So this is absolutely probably going to be Dawson Knox's last year. Let's get to off. Go ahead.
Unless he takes a pay cut, which could definitely happen. It's the salary number that I've got a problem with, not necessarily the dead cap number, because you're going to start seeing higher and higher dead cap numbers around the entire roster. And we saw that what happened last year when they cut a bunch of those players and traded Stephon Diggs, they had those dead cap numbers. It's about saving the cash, because then in the future years, you're going to have open cap space. So
Good
the dead cap number doesn't bother me.
That's a good point. And I would also say if there's player on this team that would be willing to take a pay cut to stay, I would feel like Dawson Knox would be one of them. He loves it here. The fans love him. The team loves him. So
and he already did that last summer. Like they gave him a reworked deal with a little bit of a pay cut in there, which is why he was even on the roster. Was it this year or last year? I can't remember. One or the other.
It was last year. Well, this would be potentially two restructures / pay cuts to keep him here, which just goes to speak what a terrible contract that was for Brandon Beane, but whatever, man. They're fine. All right, offensive line, before we get to a break. All right, so the Bills ran for 224 yards as a team. You got to give the offensive line credit for that to an extent. 5.2 yards per carry. I looked it up. Josh Allen was pressured. It felt like he was pressured more than he was. Josh Allen was pressured on 26.7% of his snaps per ESPN's Next Gen Stats. And I looked it up. There was only 5 quarterbacks around the league in week 2 that were pressured less than Josh Allen. So again, there wasn't as much pressure as often anyway as it felt like. He was sacked once too. So now he's been sacked twice now in 2 games. Pretty much on line with last year. The Bills ain't turning the ball over and Josh Allen ain't getting sacked. Sounds a lot like last year, don't it? But anyway, statistically a really good game. Again, the Jets have a pretty talented front four. Quentin Williams had one really good play. He bullied David Edwards back, and I can't remember who he tackled. Maybe it was Ray Davis, whatever. But outside of that, Quentin Williams really didn't do much, man. So anyway, offensive line.
Yeah, the one sack that they allowed was for -1 yards. Like, I mean, it just like it wasn't even it wasn't even a bad thing. They did allow those pressures, like we talked about the intentional groundings earlier. So they allowed those. The Jets have a really, really good front four, and I think what they were doing, getting Cook going side to side, was like helping those offensive linemen set up blocks. And so I think they had an overall positive game. I gave it like a B or a B plus somewhere in there. Just like we didn't have any tush pushes. I noticed that, especially after Josh took the thing to the nose, they decided not to run that play. I don't know if there were any. There's one 4th and 1 or 3rd and 1 where they lined Allen up, I think, in the shotgun, but didn't do the tush push. But I think overall they were fine. So I gave them a B.
I'm gonna be a little more generous than
Okay.
you. I'm gonna give him an A. I thought that again, the opponent considered
Yeah.
and the fact that when you run for over 200 yards, your quarterback's not pressured that much, and he's only dropped once for 1 yard, like you said. Yeah, here's what I do know, and I'm pretty sure you would agree with this, as would most Bills fans. The offensive line is by far the most underappreciated and underrated component of this football team, isn't it? Like, part of the reason why Josh Allen is MVP, he's special no matter what. And James Cook would be good with the Arizona Cardinals, but is James Cook what he is without Josh Allen at quarterback? And more importantly, perhaps without this offensive line, they just do such a good job. And knock on wood, I don't have any, yes, I do. That's some cheap wood, but some wood to knock on. They continue to stay healthy. Like this unit
I know.
doesn't miss games. They've now played what 2 seasons and 2 games, and then one guy's missed 1 game. It's just such an underrated unit, isn't it?
I think so. And like I put out a tweet the other day because Adam Schefter made a note about the Cincinnati Bengals offensive line being ranked in the bottom quartile every year that Joe Burrow's been the quarterback. And it really speaks to what Brandon Beane has been able to do as far as building that offensive line through the draft and through free agency. Um, the Bills really invested in that to help Josh Allen go from good to great. And I mean, even when to go from like rookie Josh to good. They bring in Mitch Morris to help with the offensive line calls. Obviously, they have Deion Dawkins. They bring in like all these different pieces, and it really goes to like the team building aspect of like how they put together this group. And you see other teams struggling. JJ McCarthy's having a rough go because
Mm.
two of his offensive linemen are out. Now he's injured for 3 weeks. You look around the rest of the NFL and all these injured quarterbacks, and the vast majority of it is because of shaky offensive line play, not necessarily the quarterback's faults. Some of it is, but not necessarily. And so it really is shows the importance of the offensive line. And so if by extension it shows the importance of the offensive line, I do think they are a little bit underrated as far as Bills fans go.
Let's take a quick break, come back, and we'll get to the Bills' defense and then plenty more around the league as well. All right, back here with Matt Moran from SB Nation. Some big breaking news. I'm kind of being sarcastic there, but as we're recording this, the Cincinnati Bengals have signed former Bills quarterback Mike White to their practice squad. They had to add another quarterback, and it appears that it could be Mike White with Joey Burrow out. We'll get to Joe Burrow and the Bengals here in just a few. All right, let's continue on with the Bills positionally grades. And as I didn't do this in week 1, and I'm going to go back and listen, and then I'll go back and listen. I think I'm going to put up a chart. And each week, what I'll do is I'll update the chart with the grades positionally, Matt Warren's grades, and we'll put a graphic up on the screen so
Oh,
people can see week by week. So, like, it's not old news or forgotten, when you look back a few weeks prior and kind of just track how we think they're doing positionally. All right, defensive tackle, Noah Oliver. Daquan Jones technically had a sack. Tyrod ran in like a half a yard behind the line of scrimmage out of bounds, so they counted as a sack. 73.6 PFF grade. Personally, I thought he played pretty well. The rookies, Deion Walker, 22 snaps. TJ Sanders had 23. He was credited with 2 pressures. Zion Logue, I'm sorry. He had a half a sack. He played 16 snaps. I thought he did a I thought he did a pretty good job of filling in this game. Nothing spectacular from this unit, but they also didn't get gashed, which is a good thing. Defensive tackle, as you know, Matt, is also one of those positions where it's really hard to track statistically, judge based on statistics how a unit does. But what do you think, defensive tackle?
I was watching the defensive line specifically during the game over in the feed at Buffalo Rumblings because I wanted to see how the Bills defense was going to respond after Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry ran the hell over them.
Mm.
And so Justin Fields has that ability. Obviously, they have a really great running back. Like I wanted to watch the defensive line again. And so the defensive tackles, like with Ed Oliver out specifically, they weren't knifing into the backfield like we've seen Oliver do time and time again. They were really just kind of establishing the pocket and pushing the pocket, keeping their heads up, waiting to see what Fields was going to do or what the running back was going to do, whatever it was. And so I thought they played very, very well with that like kind of prism. And so like Deion Walker got the start over TJ Sanders next to
Yeah.
Daquan Jones. Like they weren't trying to replicate what Ed Oliver did. They were playing to the strengths of the defensive tackles. And that was just a good coaching decision. We'll talk about like the rest of how they contained Fields when we get to the defensive ends. But I thought they did a really nice job of pushing that pocket without getting their shoulders turned, without opening up rushing lanes for Justin Fields. So I really liked what the defensive tackles did in this game. I didn't write down a grade apparently, but I'm going to give them an A. There we go.
Okay. Sure. I really, I agree with everything you said. I will say, and it's not concerning, the alarm's not off, nothing like that, but they're out there. I'm not really seeing much at all from the rookies yet.
Yeah.
And I'm not concerned. I want to point that out. I'm not pushing no panic buttons or anything like that. I would imagine being a rookie defensive tackle, especially if you're not a blue chip first round guy, in the top half of the first round. I would imagine, it takes a lot of time to get acclimated to the strength and the speed and the size of the NFL players. They're just not really seeing too much. I don't remember who said it, so I can't give credit, but I thought this was interesting. You said Walker started with Daquan Jones, and he did. What I didn't realize, and I can't remember who said it, but they showed it that it was that Daquan Jones actually played the 3 tech.
Yes.
And it was Deion Walker playing the 1 tech. So that was that was interesting. Yeah, you know what? I don't really have much to add, so I'm just babbling. I agree with you. I will give him an A, considering the fact that the Jets could do absolutely nothing on offense, and they played at least a role, if not statistically, their edge. Joey Bosa, to me, was probably the best player on the field for either team on Sunday, and obviously that is an incredible development if you're a Bills fan. 7 pressures, I think he was credited for. He got a sack, 2 forced fumbles, including a beautiful punch out, man. That was such a technically sound play by Bosa. He just looks really, really good so far. So he was fantastic. Greg Rizzo had a half a sack. He had a pass block down. I thought he did a pretty good job containing, from what I saw, at least anyway. AJ Epinesa was actually credited with 3 quarterback pressures in this game. I thought he was terrible in week 1. I thought he played much better in this game. He also had a fumble recovery. He was there to fall on the ball that Joey Bosa punched out. Javon Solomon, we're going to have a conversation really soon, if not in 30 seconds, about I would like to see Landon Jackson right now. I mean, was Javon Solomon giving you that much on special teams that he's an indispensable special teams player that you can't trust Landon Jackson? Because if you remember going back to our bold predictions before the summer, I told you that I thought Javon Solomon could have 6 to 8 sacks. I don't believe that anymore. I'm just not seeing really anything from him. But anyway, him aside, we're talking positionally here, not specific players. What do you think about the edge position?
Yeah, Bosa was like jacked up at the end of the game too. Like he was having like the time of his life. It felt like.
Yes.
So it was fun to see that. It was fun to hear him talk after the game. Actually, after both games now, he's he feels like a kid in a candy store sometimes when they talk to him. So he's having fun out there. Which the vibes we've talked about it with Hard Knocks. The vibes are good in the Bills locker room right now. It's funny you mentioned that Epinesa played better because he got absolutely smoked by Fields on that fumble recovery play. He had him like it was just one-on-one and Fields shaked and baked him, ran past him. Bosa knocks the ball out and Epinesa is like, oh, look, a present for me. And he falls on it. So he got absolutely rocked on that play, but ended up making, obviously the fumble recovery to kind of wipe that away. Bosa was stellar. They had a lot of sacks. They had a lot of pressures. They had a lot of forced fumbles. They did, if you look at the snap counts, pull back Javon Solomon's snaps considerably, and it ended up being like a 3-man show with Groot, Bosa, and Epinesa. So, I mean, the Bills are saying the same thing you are, at least as far as the defensive snaps for Javon Solomon. They're just like, we're going to go with these three guys. Javon Solomon can play special teams for us. So there were still a couple containment issues as far as like I said, that's what I was watching specifically. But I think overall, I mean, I don't think you can push them further than like an A, further lower than an A, just because they had so many high impact plays and really did a nice job against, Justin Fields, who had a really solid day in week 1 against a really good Steelers defense. And so the Bills stepped up, I think, at edge.
I think, and this is, I'm sure Sean McDermott, this is music to his ears. If there were 2 ways that I would give out for this game, it would be in the trenches. I thought the offensive line and I thought edge were the 2 biggest bright spots for this team. We talked about Bosa. I talked about him yesterday with Don Tibbetts too. Dude, he just, all the talk, and you heard it this summer, how he just felt happy and comfortable, and he likes this team, and he likes spending time with this team. You mentioned how animated he was on the sidelines. I think he feels like a Buffalo Bill now. I think he feels like he fits in. I feel like he is a big part of this team. And I'm also sure he's heard a lot of rumblings. Oh, the guy could never stay healthy. Some people probably around the league have said that he's, a washed up version of what he used to be 5 years ago because he can't stay healthy, whatever it may be. But he ain't playing like that. And he wants you to know that. I kind of get that vibes when it comes to him.
Let's talk about like the difference between LA and Buffalo too, right? Like when you're a football player in LA, who knows where you're living? You're not living who knows who you're hanging out with on the weekends? Who knows the other stuff that you're doing? When Joey Bosa comes to Buffalo and he's living, I would assume in the neighborhood with, probably 5 other Bills players or something like that. And like they're hanging out there, the vibes are immaculate. And there's a reason that like people talk about playing in Buffalo and hanging out with the guys and like going to all the parties and all that stuff. What the weekly pizza stuff. Like, I mean, that makes a difference to this team building stuff. And it really does show that it's different here than it is in some other cities, not just because there's nothing to do in Buffalo. There is stuff to do in Buffalo, but they're living, close to each other in the same neighborhoods. And that's not the case in LA, in Miami, in some of these other places. And so it just can really build that team spirit in a way that other cities can't.
It's a good point. One last thing with Javon Solomon too, because you mentioned him being taken out, and I mentioned him with special teams. He had a penalty. He had a holding penalty on a kick return, and I remember because I yelled at the TV. I hate holding penalties on kick returns. They piss me off so much. Anyway, I tweeted at some point because he played in the 4th quarter, but they went to a 3-man rotation for quite a while. And I tweeted, I said, either Javon Solomon is dinged up or he got benched and they're pissed at him because he had a special teams penalty. There was a pretty long stretch. Now, again, he caught up. If you look at the snap totals, he played a lot in the last 8 minutes of the game. Like Tyrod had those, longer drives because the Bills were pretty much just, mailing it in at that point. But there was a long stretch where he did not play. And I wonder if he got benched for a while because of what he did until the game got out of hand. They said, all right, well, I'm certainly not going to keep Bosa or Rizzo out there. So get your ass back out there. I'm wondering if that happened. And if it did, again, I'm ready to see Landon Jackson. I feel like, well, maybe not Miami. You don't want to mess tinker with your lineup, but certainly against the Saints in week 4, I would love to see a week of Landon Jackson. Let's see where he's at in his development. All right, let's get to linebacker here. Terrell Bernard, I thought, played much better than he did in week 1. Not necessarily about the stats. He didn't have impactful plays. I think he only had 4 or 5 tackles. He just felt like it looked like he was in position a lot more. He didn't get beat in the passing game. Well, nobody got beat in the passing game against the Jets. But he just felt his gap responsibility was better. I just thought he played a better game. I thought Matt Milano was solid. However, he got hurt. And that sucks. And Dorian Williams is fine. There's one play I want to bring up after you talk about Dorian Williams. Might have been my favorite play of the game that I saw on film anyway, watching the All-22 back, and it involved Dorian Williams. But what do you think, man? Linebacker.
I don't have a whole lot to add. With Taron Johnson out, you knew that it could end up being the Dorian Williams coming in doing the 3 linebacker thing. And, like you said, every time I saw them, they appeared to be in the right position, making the right plays. But
Yeah.
like, I don't remember a whole lot from the entire linebacker crew in the entire game. There was maybe it's the one time I do remember Dorian Williams and I noticed he was in the game was like a sideline cam. Whether it was Benford or somebody else came up and stopped a guy, and then Dorian Williams came like over the top and finished him off on the sideline. But I just don't remember a whole lot from the linebacker group this week.
There really wasn't a lot. I'm trying to find it. If I can, I want to put it up. I want to pull up on the screen. I usually don't do this. If you're watching on the video side, let me see if I even know how to do this shit. With this is Dorian Williams. Where is it here? I gotta find it. All right, so I could share. Let's see. All right, I'm gonna pull it up. I'm gonna add to the scene, and then I gotta maximize this. All right, I'm gonna watch Dorian Williams here, folks. What he does to Breece Hall, the running back. This is a blitz. He doesn't make the play, but watch Dorian Williams' blitz and what he does to. Watch what he does to Breece Hall. He almost kills that dude. He just runs his ass over, man. It was wild. So anyway, let me get back to the screen here again. I'm not really experienced at doing this shit. Anyway, all right. So yeah, Dorian Williams almost decapitated him. That's got really nothing to do with our evaluation other than one play I wanted to check out. So anyway, yeah, Matt Milano getting hurt is the only thing that matters.
Yep.
I guess in this game. What did you give him a grade? What was your grade?
I'll just say A- because I didn't see anything like detrimental. I didn't see anything good. Like, it's like, okay, it's fine. You were there. A-. There you go.
Yeah. All right. I'm with you there. I agree with you there. Let's talk about Matt Milano briefly here. Again, let's not speculate. It's too early to speculate. As we record this anyway, it's too late to speculate. Information may be out there by the time you guys listen to this. But man, what do you do? You know, all summer long, he looks healthy. He's great. It's like, this is 2022. Matt Milano's back. And you've seen a little bit of side. I thought he was okay in week 1. I thought he played pretty well here in week 2. But here we are again. Some players just can't stay healthy. It's an unfortunate reality. It's not limited to just the Buffalo Bills either. Every team has a few players like Matt Milano, maybe not as talented as Milano, but guys who are good players who just, you can't trust them to stay on the field. Are you getting close to the point where you're saying, you know what, I'm ready for the Dorian Williams era to start here now? I don't know, man. I mean, I don't know how to feel.
Not by choice. I mean, I think we're just getting there by circumstance. You know, it's the Peck again. You know, when he got injured in that Jacksonville game in London, I didn't think that was an injury that we would like label as like an injury prone player. He got rolled up on, leg broke. You know, that happened to Eric Wood. That's happened to plenty of players in the NFL over the years. But now this is his second Peck injury in the last 2 years. It's something that's obviously going to follow him for the rest of his career. I'm hoping that it's just like a sprain. He had I guess they put like the harness on him during the game, so he could come back in if they needed him. You know, which makes me hopeful that it's not like a full tear like it was last year or anything like that. So I'm, like I said, I don't want to speculate. I'm hoping that he's able to suit up at some point in the near future. Maybe not Thursday against Miami, but you know, maybe in October or whatever it is. And I remember questioning the Dorian Williams pick when they made it, and like, you know, he doesn't have a path to playing time. He doesn't have a path to the roster. And obviously I was wrong. I'm able to say I was wrong. It's like the second or third time I've said it this episode. So,
well, you know, again, if you're looking for an optimistic outcome, Terrell Bernard strained his pec last year and he missed 2 games. So best case, I think is a lock to not play Thursday. And considering that they're playing the Saints the following week at home, I would say anybody who's, you know, if it's a tough call, they're not going to play because they're playing the Saints at home. And then they would play New England the week after that, Sunday Night Football. So best case, I feel like best case, and I don't want to speculate anymore because, again, he could be out for the season by the time people hear this. Who the hell knows? Let's move on. Corner. Christian Benford, Trey White, both had great run stops. That it was an end around, that 10-yard loss Benford had. When you watch it on the All-22, if you don't make that play, the Jets have a big play and possibly a touchdown because there was more blockers and defenders out on that right side, and lots of space for Arian Smith. So that was actually a big play in the game. Trey White, not known for his run defense prowess, actually had 2 good run stops. Neither were tested in the passing game. Cam Lewis was fine. Bro, Justin Fields at 27 yards passing. I mean, what are we talking about here when it comes to corner? But again, good run defense. What do you say?
Yeah, with Taron out, with Taron Johnson out, Trey White coming back off his injury, I thought they played great, considering all of those things that we have to notice. Yeah, they had the good run fills. They certainly benefited from a great defensive line game and getting after Justin Fields. But I don't know how you could ask a whole lot more of them. It's not even like they were in positions to get interceptions and didn't or something like that.
Right.
So, I mean, same thing. I've been saying it like so many times, during the episode today. Like they get an A. They didn't do anything detrimental to the team. They made a couple nice plays. It's just like it really was a full team effort. Like it's hard to even distinguish. Like that's why Joey Bosa standing out at the defensive end position was so remarkable, because everybody else just was like solid. It's like, who do you want to give a lot of credit to? And I think it was very evenly distributed this week.
When you win a game, all right, so it's fun to talk about these positionally, and I like this exercise. I think it's fun, and I think it's informative. When it comes to giving out grades, it can be tough, because when you go on the road and you won 30-10, but essentially it was 30-3. I mean, the Jets scored, like I said, at the end of the game. The Bills weren't even really, I'm not saying they weren't trying to stop them, but none of the starters were pretty much out there by that point. What are you going to do? I mean, there's not a lot of positions that they didn't play well at. When you win by that much, that convincingly, you're not going to get a lot of C- and worse from a position. I'm with you there. Safeties. Cole Bishop, he had a sack in this game. He had a penalty, which is weird, because the penalty, I actually liked the penalty. I don't know why, but I liked it. I kind of liked him being kind of a dick. You know what I mean? Like being a little bit of a rat out there. A late hit, and then he shoved someone after too. Like, I kind of like this. I don't want to see that in a tight game, but I like this version of Cole Bishop. He didn't get beat. He was in pretty good position all day from what I saw. I thought Taylor Rapp was perfectly fine. He was solid. He didn't hurt anybody. He didn't hurt himself. So that's always a good thing with him. Safety.
Did Bishop have a pressure too? Like he came in on
I think so.
blitz, right? Yeah. Like he had flash.
Oh, he did. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I mean, so I thought that they played really well. Again, I put down the asterisk, like, hey, thank you, pass rush again. Like, I mean, they didn't really have an opportunity to get tested too much in the secondary, and that's not a bad thing. I also wrote down, are we okay with the penalty? Because I kind of am. And so I agree with you 100% on that. It was one of those borderline plays. Like you watch it real time, you're like, oh, he's going to get called for a penalty. But I don't think I don't think the whistle had blown. Like, yeah, he picked him up and body slammed him instead of just shoving him the extra 6 inches to get him out of bounds. But it was close enough where I didn't think it was super dirty. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm with you. I thought it was funny. I mentioned this to Dom on the show yesterday too, is Sean McDermott said on Monday he could see a different look in their eyes. I'm like, yeah, that look is called Justin Fields and not Lamar Jackson. So yeah, the look was probably different in their eyes. I would totally agree with that. Yeah, they played well. And it's look, if you're looking for, things to build off, more reps, getting out there and playing more for Cole Bishop, and for Taylor Rapp too, but especially for Cole Bishop, having a good game. These are the kind of things that just more experience, more confidence that could help him going forward. It was promising, I'll say, from the safeties. All right, special teams here. Mostly good. 2 little bad things I'm going to point out. The good, obviously, Matt Prater, 3 for 3 on field goals, including a 52-yarder. I'm going to throw that out there. Cameron Johnson, the new punter, had 3 punts, 43.3 yards, 2 of them inside the 20. He had a really nice directional punt to the left sideline, too. Mm-hmm. That was good. There was also a bad snap. I don't remember which one, but Reed Ferguson didn't have a great snap, and Johnson caught it and put it down and had a nice hold. So that was really good. On the negative side, I mentioned the Javon Sullivan holding penalty. And so I watch the games with my son, and my son's a big football guy, but he is not like me. I got a take about everything. It's annoying. There's not a thing in the world that Patrick Moran doesn't have a take on. Well, my son's the complete opposite. He doesn't have takes, but when he does, they're effective. He makes them count. All right. he's noticed something about Brandon Codrington now I pay attention to it. He hates calling for fair catch. Like, he's going to get himself killed or he's going to get hit and fumble because there could be a guy right on top of him and he's still catching the ball. Not a big deal, not hurting them, not to this point, but just something to point out. This dude catches the punt no matter what. But anyway, him aside, special teams, I'm going to assume you're going to have a high grade for this as well.
Yeah, like you said, excuse me, kicker and punter, both very, very good. The only note I wrote down was Matt Prater, man. He's been such a breath of fresh air to this team in the wake of Tyler Bass's injury. And you see like other kickers around the league struggling, and they were able to sign this guy off the high school sideline, and it's worked out really well for them.
Yeah, and let's wait another week because it's easy to get into a Prater versus Tyler Bass potential kicking controversy. Let's see if Prater continues to do if he's doing what he's doing right now and he's perfect and stuff like that, you're going to have a controversy. Right now, I still don't think that there's a controversy, but I'm with you. Last grade for the week, and I'm not even going to describe it. I'll let you tell me what you think, but coaching.
Yeah, I really liked the game plan that they put in place on the defensive line to keep Justin Fields kind of contained after he ran all over the Steelers a little bit, as they were ultra aggressive as they normally are. And the Bills were able to like push the pocket from the defensive tackle, keep him contained outside of that one Epinesa play that eventually turned into a Bills win anyway. So I really like the defensive game plan against what I think is a really talented individually Jets offense. They have a lot of really good players on that side of the ball. As far as the offense goes, I liked the game plan of, obviously, remember I complained about it at the beginning and then it worked out getting them going side to side to set up the blocks. So obviously they know more than I do, which is not surprising. They went with the hot hand and they just kept handing it off. They didn't force Josh into YOLO mode, like throwing for 200 yards plus or whatever. I just thought they took, like you said earlier, they took what the Jets gave them and we're happy about it. And so I really don't have a problem with any of the game planning stuff. I think they probably took out the starters at the right time. Part of me wanted them to take about one series earlier.
I thought Josh played one drive too many, and he also threw a pass once too, where I'm like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, so like that was like the one thing I was like, maybe we don't want to give the coaches credit for that one. They should have taken about earlier. But I understand that one more drive. But yeah, I thought overall very, very solid game from the coaches.
Great.
Yeah, let's go great. A+. There we go.
Okay. You know what? I changed my mind too because I said the trenches were the highest grade. I'm going to agree with you here. I think the coaching game plan, everything was borderline perfect.
And it's a new the Jets too. Like, we don't have a ton of game film on what this Jets offense is supposed to be doing. Or, I mean, really, like, not just the Jets offense, but like the Jets coaching staff wants to do with the offense. And so there could have been stumbles with the lack of game film and prep time.
Defensively, they were committed to stopping the run. Okay. What did Bobby Babbage do? A great job of this game. And you notice it too. It was the corners coming up on these blitzes, and both of them made really nice run stops. So I thought the game plan defensively was great. Offensively, I don't normally like saying this because I thought they were rather boring with Joe Brady. And I, usually bitch about him being I think they ran the same play once 4 consecutive times in a row. Literally, they ran the same play 4 straight times to James Cook. And the last one got stuffed. But anyway, normally that would annoy me. But in this case, it was clear as day to me that the game plan on offense was the only way the Jets are going to be with us in the fourth quarter is if we turn the ball over. If we give them a pick six, if we, they get 2 or 3 turnovers, if we make some bad mistakes, they're going to stay in the game. And the Bills just said, not on this day. They don't need Super Josh Allen in this game. I have no issues with Joe Brady being overly conservative, other than I'd like to see them being a little more creative in the red zone. They were only 2 for 4 in the red zone, so I didn't love that. But all in all, I thought the offensive game plan for this opponent in this week was perfect. And Ed Oliver and Teron Johnson are 2 great players, both out. They did not let that affect them whatsoever. And then the last thing I'll say about coaching is, look, what were we concerned about all week? a little bit of a Jets letdown. You beat Baltimore at home. That might end up being the NFL game of the year right away, Sunday night, week 1. It would have been easy to go on the road against a Jets team with a new head coach that is desperate, I'm sure, to make a statement that, hey, we're throwing our hat in the ring now when it comes to the AFC East. They almost beat Pittsburgh. They had a lot of momentum, a lot of goodwill with their fans. And Sean McDermott had this team clearly focused, and they just went to New Jersey and they took that all away from Aaron Glenn and the Jets. And Sean McDermott significantly outcoached Glenn, who I thought was bad. Like that punt call midway through the third quarter, if that was Sean McDermott, we wouldn't have been waiting an hour to talk about it on this podcast. I absolutely can guarantee that. So grade-wise, I'm with you, man. I thought it was pretty much an A-plus game from the coaches. All right, so they're playing Miami. Go ahead.
Well, I think going on the road helped them with that, with the
Sure.
the Ravens hangover thing. They leave on whatever it is, Friday, Saturday, they get there, they've got all this time to just really focus down on the game, as opposed to if they're at home hanging out the night before another home game. I think
Sure.
not that they're usually pretty good about not getting distracted, but I think it just only helped.
I agree with you. And that's a great point, actually, being on the road. I think in that case, definitely helped them. All right, so let's quickly turn our attention to Miami. I will have tomorrow's show a full Bills, Dolphins preview, keys to victory, bowl prediction, score prediction, all that stuff that I do every week. But for now, I'll say this. We talked about guarding against a letdown with the Jets. Got to do that now as well against the Dolphins. The Bills are favored by 12.5 points as we record this right now. That is a lot. I don't care who you're playing against a divisional rival. Here's the thing about Miami, Matt. I don't know what Miami team we're going to get. Are we going to get a Miami Dolphins team that is playing for their lives? Everyone's counting them out. They got all the billboard material, bulletin board material, I should say, that they need in that locker room. They're playing for their lives. If they're 0-3, that's a wrap. 3 games in, your season's pretty much over if you're going 0-3. I feel like anyway, with this team. So are you going to get their best shot? Are they going to play loose? Nothing to lose. No one believes in us anyway. Are they going to have that mantra and they're going to come on and lay it all on the line against the Bills? Or are you going to get the Miami Dolphins team that, first of all, is not very good? I mean, they got a couple good skill position players, but they don't play good defense. Their offensive line is in shambles. Their quarterback, if you could get him past that first read, he is hot garbage, and he is. And Tyreek Hill there's already trade rumors going on with him. And the head coach, that goes without saying, they can get fired if he loses this game. And I truly believe that he could get fired if they lose this game. Are you going to get that team that is on the verge? If you get up early and you start to, you pull up, you get up 2 scores, are they just going to quit? Are they going to run for the bus? Are they done? Are they going to quit on their coach? Are they going to quit on their quarterback, who's not a leader on this team? There is no leaders really on this football team. I don't know what version of the Miami Dolphins you're going to get. But they've given up 33 points in both their first games against Indy and New England. Again, 2 or 3 interceptions, all very ugly. I don't know what kind of Miami Dolphins team you're going to get. Which one do you think we're going to get?
You keep saying that there's another one. I haven't seen the other one in a very long time. I haven't seen the good one. So, I mean, the vibes are so bad with that team. It feels like nobody wants to play for Mike McDaniel. It feels like you said run for the bus. It feels like they already are. It's week 2. So they come in and win this game on Sunday or on Thursday against the Bills. They're 1 game out of first place in the AFC East with the tiebreaker over the Bills. Can you even I don't even see what from the first 2 games you would hang your hat on if you're a Miami Dolphins fan and be like, yes, they're going to be able to do that to the Bills and we're going to win this game. I just don't see it. They're going through it, man.
Yes. It's the NFL though. And you never know. But yes, put it this way. If there ever was going to be a week where they say it's now or never, it's got to be this week. It has to be this week. I don't want you to give me a prediction because I already know that you're not going to pick against the Bills against Miami. Why would anybody do that? But I'll ask you this instead. Assuming the Bills handle business on Thursday night, and let's say they win by double digits or more, Is this Mike McDaniel's last game as head coach of the Miami Dolphins?
Man, I really want to say yes, but week 3 is very early, man. Like I think I've been circling this week for months, saying what since the schedule came out, like this, they lose those games, like this could be the time where they move on from McDaniel. And I mean, I say it's 50-50, and that's being generous, I think, because it's just so early in the season. You don't see coaches get fired 3 weeks in very often. And so I, I'm going to say he's still the coach come week 4, but man, I really want to say yes.
This is a team. They're a team that is really close to having to completely blow it up and start over.
Yeah.
New head coach, new general manager, and this has been the least fun part if you're a Miami fan. Tua's contract, I'm looking at it right now. There's no way the earliest they can move on from him is 2027. So
Well,
he might not start next year. What?
They could do the Russell Wilson, and they could
Oh, they could.
They could sit him down for the rest of the season, pay him $54 million next year to get out of 2027 and beyond. Like that, they could really do that, and just cut him at the end of this season, because they owe him $54 million for 2026, but they don't owe him anything beyond that unless he plays in 2026. And so it's the rolling guarantee thing that the same reason the Broncos sat and then cut Russell Wilson, and he ended up playing for the Steelers for $1 million or whatever it was.
It's worked out for Denver, and that's because they drafted really well with Bo Nix, and they got some really good draft picks. Miami, do you have confidence for them to be able to do the same? I'm looking real quick here. 2026, if they were to move on and do a Russell Wilson next year, if they cut him pre-June 1st and just got it all done, they would have to eat $99 million in dead cap, and they would lose $42 million against the cap. If they cut him post June 1st, it'd be about 67 in dead, and they would still lose 11 million. Anyway, my whole point is this. It's a shitty situation for the Miami Dolphins all around.
Isn't it great?
Right now? And I will say this, man. I've had a conversation with 2 former players who have been with the Miami Dolphins over the last 3 years. Okay. I'll just say that. It's real there. The leadership thing, the way that team is run, the lack of respect for the head coach, thinking the quarterback is not a true leader of men. It's legit and it's real. And this isn't from you and I, man. This is from players who have said it. All right, so we got about, I don't know, just a handful of minutes left, about 8-9 minutes left before we both have to get out of here. Here's what I want to do. What do you want to, I want to talk NFL stuff. Because we're not going to be able to get to everything. So what do you want to hit on around the league that you think is most important to hit on before we get out of here?
It's not really something that Bills fans want to hear about, but the NFC West only has 1 loss, and it's inside their own division. So the NFC West is playing really, really well right now. Even if they're like, I mean, it's not like necessarily convincing wins or overwhelming wins, but that NFC West race is going to be a really fun one to watch with, I think, 4 solid teams. I wouldn't have thought Seattle coming into the season was going to do any damage, but they played pretty well in their 2 games. But let's kick it back over to the AFC. Do you think the Colts are real? It's so hard because like after week 1 they're like, okay, well, they beat the Dolphins. The Dolphins suck. Who cares? But like they beat a really good
Denver
team. Yeah, they beat a team we thought was going to be good this year in the Denver Broncos. So, are the Colts for real, or is it just an example of, they didn't have film on Daniel Jones and the rest of the league's going to catch up to them by like week 6 or 7?
Oh, God, man, it's such a good question. Here's what I'll say. Every year without fail, there is a team that nobody considers before the season that kind of rises from the ashes and becomes good. Usually it's because you got really good young quarterbacks. A handful of years ago, CJ Stroud in Houston went from 2 wins to the division. Last year, Washington goes from like 2 wins to almost getting to the Super Bowl. It's weird with Indy because I feel like they might be this year's team, but it's not like with a young quarterback per se, youngish anyway. Daniel Jones, he's looked really good so far.
They haven't punted yet.
Jesus, really?
The entire season, they haven't punted.
I don't know, man. I need to see more, I guess.
Well, yeah.
I'm not ready to commit to if they're for real, but they're a good early season story. if they would have just beat Miami, I would be like, who gives a shit? I think almost everyone in the league. Miami might be one of the 3 worst teams in the NFL right now. But they did beat Denver. And Denver ain't no joke. Yeah, they're good. They got a good, I don't know, do I say they got a good quarterback? I don't know if they got a good quarterback.
They have
got a quarterback who's off to a good start.
They have a quarterback who's playing well. Daniel Jones doesn't have to be a good quarterback. He just has to keep playing well.
I'm going to, when we're done recording this, I'm going to go dive into some Colts analytics and figure out if this team's really good. I'm going to look at their roster. They might be. That's a good question. The Cincinnati Bengals, 3 months, potentially 3 months. No Joey Burrow. Man, this is another guy. You know, we talk about every team has a Matt Milano. Well, the Cincinnati Bengals have their Matt Milano, and it's their franchise quarterback, man. He's so good, but when he's out there, he's as good as anybody, just kind of like Matt Milano. But, man, just gets hurt a lot. And can they withstand? They are 2-0. That's kind of important right now that they're 2-0 as opposed to even just 1-1. That's big. But he would be in line, by the way, if he missed 3 full months, he would miss the Bills game and come back the week after. But I don't know. I don't buy the timeline. He gets back a week early. He can still play against the Bills. So I'm not dismissing him playing against Buffalo whatsoever. I guess my question to you would be, can the Bengals in the NFC North withstand 3 months and no Joe Burrow?
He was my MVP pick. I mean, I'm
mine too. Remember, we both picked him.
It's but no, I don't think that I think that AFC North is trash. So who knows? I mean, outside of Baltimore, let me be clear. I think the Ravens are probably still the best team in the NFL. But I don't think that they can withstand that. Like, they're going to be a 500 team, for the next 3 months. I mean, do you think they can sneak into the playoffs? I mean, not if the Colts are going to put up like some wicked numbers at the start of the season. It just feels like there's so many teams in the AFC that are really crappy that like there's only going to be 6 or 7 teams left at the end. So, I mean, maybe like we saw last year, the Colts were like, I don't know, a game back of a playoff spot for like a month and then just kind of fell apart at the end of December. Like maybe the Bengals can get into that position and just be like, kind of like on the outside looking in and make a push when Burrow gets back. But we already talked about it with the offensive line. The Bengals have not supported Burrow with offensive line. They've supported him with wide receivers. And so it's an interesting conversation about team building. The Bills and Chiefs went away from, super rich wide receiver contracts and built their offensive lines. The Bengals did the exact opposite. The Eagles did both somehow, and they've leveraged like their future cap ridiculously for their offensive line and for their 2 great receivers for Jalen Hurts. So like just team building conversations are fun for me to have. And I don't think the Bengals have done a particularly great job at that.
Let me real quick here run off because I've been saying it since last year. If you remember last year, there was so much time you and I spent on our shows last year not wanting anything to do with the Cincinnati Bengals potentially in the playoffs. And I still feel that way just because I hate the way Joe Burrow's played against the Buffalo Bills. It just feels like he's owned this defense. But anyway, so they're 2-0. Now, the good news is if you're anti-Bengals is they play 2 of their shitty teams already on the schedule, the Browns and the Jaguars. You look at their schedule here. Listen to these next 5 games. And let's assume he's all the way out to the 14th, okay? But they're at Minnesota this week, although to be fair, it is it's the Carson Wentz quarterback. Zach Browning against Carson Wentz in week 3. Jesus. Anyway, you're at Minnesota this week. You're at Denver. You got Detroit at home. You're at Green Bay and Pittsburgh. That is a tough 5 games. They could easily go 1-4 during that stretch. Then they get 2 home games that should be much easier. They got the Jets and the Bears, who have been really disappointing through 2 weeks at home. I'm not sure Caleb Williams is going to be the answer in Chicago. But anyway, then they get a bye. And before the 14th, they're at Pittsburgh, at home against the Patriots. They're at Baltimore. They're at Buffalo. They're going to struggle to stay afloat. But like I said, they're 2-0 right now. So if they can manage to win, they're not going to win half those games, I don't think, anyway. Last question. Last question I want to get because we got to get out of here. The Chiefs, 0-2. How do we not mention the Chiefs being 0-2? Funny memes going around. Taylor Swift song. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling 0-2. That's kind of corny. But anyway, the Chiefs are 0-2. That's not corny. The Chiefs being 0-2. Is the dynasty over? I mean, it's obviously too immature to say that, but I don't know, doing in a division where the Chargers are 2-0, and I think Denver's very good. They got a cake game at the Giants. They should win this week, but then they're playing Baltimore, and they got Detroit coming up 2 weeks after that. I think the number one seed is in big jeopardy already for the Chiefs.
Yeah, and one of their losses is to the Chargers, and so they're 2.5
Yeah.
games out of the AFC West right now. So, I think they're in trouble. We talked about the regression to the mean. Like last year, they just won so many kind of crazy games that I didn't think that that would be able to continue. I didn't expect them to be like 0-2. I didn't expect them to be, I certainly don't expect them to miss the playoffs. They're going to go on a run here at some point. They're too talented for that at quarterback, at head coach. But that interception off of Travis Kelce's hands, man, was particularly brutal. And they are having some offensive line stuff as well going on. So they don't scare me the way that they've scared me in the past, but in the playoffs, you know that they're going to scheme and game plan and do something that you've never seen before. So they're always a scary team. But yeah, they're hurting early here.
For sure. All right, guys, let's call it a wrap for this episode. Matt and I both got things that we need to get to. I thank everybody as always for watching, for listening. Like I said, on the show tomorrow, we're going to have a full Bills Miami preview and prediction show. Maybe here in the studio, maybe live with the guest. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at Patrick Moran TB, and I'll let you guys know. Make sure you follow Matt on social, both his socials, X and also Blue Sky at Matt Rich Warren, of course. Buffalo Rumblings. We got to start talking a little bit. I got to start making sure we carve out time here because Buffalo Rumblings has so much good shit on their page every day. It's a fun stop. I like to call it a one-stop shop kind of for all things Buffalo Bills. So make sure you guys are checking that out. Like I said, we're going to start carving more time to talk about that in the beginning. But I appreciate you as always, buddy.
All right. Have a good one.
All right, guys, I will be back. Brand new show coming up tomorrow.